Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of things to help you attract more customers, increase profits, and ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and this week's featured muralist for our May Mural Month to kick us off is none other than Anat Ronen. She was highly requested within members of our Artist Academy, so we sat down to chat about all things murals. She's been painting full-time since 2008 and had a lot of tips to give. If you follow Anat on social media, and I highly request you do, that just to see the quality of her product, you'll see her share also tidbits lately of some of her lessons learned. So she literally is writing out captions to some of her murals lately and just saying, this customer was really hard. This is what I learned from it, and blah, blah, blah. And I love asking artists this. Like, naturally, I had to ask her to share more of these stories after reading some on social media. I was like, what else you got? What are some other ones? Because I know you have a lot. And I love hearing the lessons learned from artists who have been doing this a really, really long time, because they tend to have some good ones. Times where they really messed up, or they put up with a crazy customer, or learned something that forever changed the way they do business. And if you ever meet an artist who has been doing this for a long time, so say they've been muraling for 10 or better yet 20 years, just ask them if they've ever had a moment that changed the way that they work for the better. Just ask them to think back and, has there ever been an instance that you're like, okay, we're doing things differently from now on? There's so much gold in the advice that they can give in that department specifically. I have a thing where I just need to learn the hard way sometimes, but then other times I'm like, just tell me what I shouldn't do, and I'll decide if I really shouldn't do it. But I want to hear the advice. And we might have to do a follow-up interview with Anat, because I know that we just scratched the surface of gift-giving advice with her, but let me know what you think about this week's episode with Anat Ronen. I am here with Anat. How are you? Tell me all the things.
Oh my God. No, I can't all of them, because that will take a week. My name is Anat, and I am a mural artist. I live in Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Israel, emigrated to the US 18 years ago this year. Been doing this for the last 16 years, basically accidentally in a way. I never thought that I would be professional artist in terms of making a living out of art, because I was told, like many of us, that you can't really make a living out of art. And that was my assumption. So I always saw it as sort of a hobby, but not something more than that. And life happened, and we came here, and we came under a certain visa. And then to stay here, we needed to apply for a different visa. And that was basically the only way to go. So it sort of became our gamble. And I applied for a visa based on what they call extraordinary abilities, which means that they give you based on some criteria. It can be that you're a good athlete. It can be that you're a good musician, that you're a good teacher, and also that you're a good artist. I just brought everything I've done since high school, to friends, to colleagues, to family, to everything. I just dumped everything on them and went with like a company that basically helps you basically submit the petition. And to my great surprise and joy and horror, I was granted a visa. And that meant that from that day on, I had to just do that. I had to just do art, nothing else, work for myself, provide for myself, doing art. At that moment that the visa is granted, my husband could not work anymore. He was my dependent, basically. So I just had to do whatever I could to pay the bills. I didn't think about murals at all. I didn't think that I was any good than any other people. The first year or two, I offered many different things like graphic design, web design, illustrations, whatever I could do, or I thought I could do, and that people would be willing to pay me for. And murals was one of them, because I painted a few murals for my son back home and for friends. And I was like, hey, let me just throw it in, in the umbrella of services. But very quickly it became apparent that that would be my main direction. Because I noticed that I'm doing them fast enough and good enough. I mean, from the feedback that I got from the clients, that I could give competitive pricing. And then also because all of the other services that I provided or I offered could have been done anywhere on the globe. It could be outsourced to India, to China, to wherever, and murals have to be done on site. So that basically became my main direction, and everything stemmed from there. I call myself accidental artist because it was like I never even had that dream. I mean, some people have that dream from the day that they're born or, soon after. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with, in art. Like some people are better in, in music. Some people are better in sports. Some people are better in gardening. I don't know. And I'm just, okay, so I can draw a little better, but I didn't really think much of it.
Yeah. Oh, I love those stories that you just get pushed into it. You're like, well, here we go. It's like just like thinking back on like if that wouldn't have happened, how much longer it would have taken, or just because you got that extra push.
Maybe never.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe never. I honestly think that I would never have the guts to do it on my own. I never really thought that even today, after I would say thousands of paintings of murals that I've done, whenever like I'm in a group show or something like that, I always feel inferior. I feel like, oh my God, I'm a total fraud. I'm a total like nobody. I mean, nobody's going to look at my art. Oh my God. So it's just funny.
That's so funny because everybody who's listening, go to her recent mural of strawberries. Your strawberry is huge and it's just plants everywhere. And from the backward shot, like say you're standing back, it looks like maybe like 20 feet or so. It looks real. Like it looks like it's so well painted, your soft colors. And it's just like, it's very impressive. It's a strawberry field or a strawberry farm
Just
plant.
one plant.
Plants. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, it's for a community garden with a strawberry plant on this giant wall and it looks so good. So that's really, so you don't feel like you can roll with the big boys of like.
I'm self-taught. I never went to school for this. So everything that I learned as I went. And basically my college I didn't even have to pay tuition because I was paid to do this, sometimes less, sometimes not at all, but it was on the run. I didn't stop what I was doing so I learned as the project came. I remember my first large mural gig. This guy saw my other stuff. I was advertising on Craigslist back then. It was funny. All kinds of weirdos came by. It's a whole story by itself. But he saw my work and he was like, hey, I want you to paint a mural for me. I'm building this bar on my own. So I cut bar/events kind of place. And I want you to do the mural. And at first he had like a very precise idea. And then I sort of visualized it for him, like a mock-up. And he was like, yeah, no, I see now it's not going to work. Do you have any ideas? So I worked on a design for him. And I told him right away, I'm very frank. And I'm like, look, I never done this size of a mural and also this complexity. So what I suggest is that, I give you a good price. You give me time. And if it works, great. If not, you just don't pay me or pay me less and you just paint again and call someone else. That was always like my go-to thing. It's like, it's only paint after all, you're not constructing like a bridge over, a river or something like that. You're not really liable for people's lives. It's just a freaking, paint. So, we shouldn't take it like super, super seriously. Obviously, I mean, every job that I do the best I can and then some, but at the same time, it's all in perspective. So yeah, so I'm very grateful, but I still don't feel that I am, I don't know. I just don't feel worthy. Maybe it's also a personality thing, so maybe, I'm never going to reach that. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I don't, I want to keep on learning and I want to keep on improving for myself, not for someone else. So yeah, it's just weird. I still feel like a fraud and someone who doesn't really belong where the others go.
Yeah, no, I think just looking at even like the hyper realistic stuff that people paint, I mean, I think all of us are like, whoa, that's that's intense. And just like there's a never ending level of leveling up too.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're not gonna get to that level of like thinking your shit doesn't stink that some artists can
No. And also, it's not, we see it obviously, those who paint towards realism, I would say. I wouldn't say that my stuff is realistic or hyper realistic, for sure not. It looks the part, but that's it. But I think that we get it wrong in thinking that that's the only way to go. There's so many other ways to go. That's the beauty about art in general. That really it's everything and it's everywhere and it's like any direction. And some people are inclined to do this. I mean, I didn't sit with myself and said, oh, well, I really want to paint realistic. It just happened. I'm good at this. However, I'm not good at other styles or, sometimes I really struggle when people want me to do something that is not. And I tell them right away, I'm like, no, this is what I do. I do it for a reason, not because I'm a smartass, not because, I'm stubborn. It's just, that's how I do things. So it's not even about getting better in that. I think it's more finding my way or finding more challenges, or I don't know even how to say it. I'm not ever looking to be like hyper realistic or anything like that. On the contrary, I really want to have less detail that looks more, if that makes sense, because that's how I paint. So I'm not looking to complicate things no.
Yeah. Do you have any tips or techniques that you use to get jobs done faster?
Simplifying, for sure.
Okay.
Simplifying. Sometimes that simplifying can happen beforehand, like on the design table, basically, or when you design things, you can kind of, just omit things or details and stuff like that. And sometimes, and also either sometimes and plus on the wall, you basically have to decide which details you're going to bring up and which details you're going to ignore. Definitely don't have to put like that strawberry plant that I painted. There's a lot that is missing, like a lot. I just made it look the part without going into anal details. It's just not going to translate well. And believe me, I tried at first, like to do all the, the veins of the leaves and stuff like that. But when you get into too much detail, sometimes it does not look good. It does not look the detail. So I think that's the tip that I would give, is to not go all the way in, but kind of try different approaches. Many times the simplistic approach and just a hint of that detail works a lot better than the whole detail.
So true. So true. I think that was one of the hardest things that I had to remember from going from canvas to murals. It's just sometimes you just like slap your brush on there and slap a highlight, step back, and it's like, oh, that looks way better than if I were to have blended it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How are you getting jobs? How did you get jobs in the beginning versus how do you get them now too?
So I was advertising on Craigslist, which got me a lot of weirdos. And then
Wait, what year was this? Were you advertising on Craigslist?
It was, I started in 2008. So it was 2008, 9, 10 that I would advertise on Craigslist. Or parallel to that, what I do is go to Google Maps and look for businesses around me that might or might not want a mural, like schools or private schools or pediatric clinics and stuff like that. And I would just shoot in an email, hey, the thing is I'm just one person, and I get, it takes only one project to get overwhelmed. So realistically, I don't need like every day, like a million of emails coming in, because it's not happening. It will not happen, and it will drive me crazy if it would. So it's really, just a measure. Along the way, I stopped doing all that. Now most of my work just comes from, I think, the circles that I sort of gathered, I would say, or became a part of, because along the way I started also doing chalk pieces on the floor and participating in festivals, in street painting festivals called like chalk. So I started kind of knowing more people, like street artists circle, and then chalk artist circle, and then mural artists, and then local artists and international artists. And older circles basically are networking. I am a hardcore introvert, so I don't go to like networking events and stuff like that. It's really hard for me. And I decided long ago, I'm like, okay, it might take me a little more, but I'm not going to do this schmoozing thing because it's just so not me. I just suffer, like really suffering. So yeah, I don't know people personally or don't know them in the way that, you just go to an event and kind of hug everyone and this and that. I don't do these kind of things. But when I work, you work and then you meet more people and then, it's like your circles basically enlarge or get bigger and bigger and some of them intersect. And so I have enough work that's coming my way, thankfully. And yeah, basically, that's how I do it.
You've hustled and now you've hit that point where people come
I
to you.
guess, yeah. And also social media, I think, very much.
Okay. Do people mostly reach out to you via Facebook or your website, or how do they
I wouldn't know, because I don't know if they, go there and then they go to my website and then they're like shooting me an email. So I couldn't tell. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I don't ask. What I did with my social media, which is maybe important for people as a tip, for years and years since I started, I continuously posted stuff, new stuff, even if it was small, even if it was things that I've done on my desktop, on my desk. It's not about, and I didn't do it because I just wanted to be there. I did it because mostly, and don't laugh, because I'm self-taught and because this sort of happened to me, it felt that if I don't do this thing daily, the magic might leave me or might be gone. So when I didn't have a lot of work, I just sort of had to do it every day. And so even little things, I mean, even I'm talking to you about sticky note art that I used to do, little things like I look back and I didn't do it like on purpose, but it just happened that I was always there in the social media world, always posting once a day, not like constantly, not like every hour or so. But I think that basically made me visible more than others, I would say. People saw like the development or the progress, if that makes sense. I think, I mean, I'm not an expert in social media, but that's what worked for me. So I'm really trying to continue with that, like post new stuff, not overpost, not overshare, not like, and do things in a positive manner, sharing my story, sharing my experience for people to learn and also to be amused by, because I think some of it is amusing.
I was very amused by your recent stories that you've been sharing. Can you share some of your lessons learned?
Oof, there's many, many, many lessons learned.
We love good stories.
Every project is a lesson learned if we're attentive to it and if we listen carefully. Obviously, I think one of the biggest things that we all struggle with is pricing, pacing, how we make a project viable and worth our time and our hustle. For me, I don't know how, but it was pretty easy to figure out from the beginning because I can see that many people kind of don't know where they're going with it. For me, it was pretty simple. If I can provide a good product in a short amount of time, I can give a good price. Mm-hmm. If not, like, for example, back in the day, I had a friend, still a friend, that he's a studio artist. He does a lot of, canvases and stuff. He has all the time in the world to do, stuff in the studio. And then he was like, Anat, I really want to do murals. This friend of mine, basically, he wants me to do this mural. I'm like, great, go for it. All right. A month after, I meet him again. And he's like, yeah. So I did this 10 by 10 mural and it took me a month. And I'm like, what? It's like, well, it was in the afternoon. So I went here and I went there and and then it took me a month. And I'm like, yeah, probably you're not a muralist because you have to understand, first of all, that you can't be in someone else's space for that long. It's just not feasible. It's not going to work. And also, if you don't have it in you to hustle and do things in a timely manner, then definitely not for you. You cannot, it's not worth your time. It's not worth the client's time. Nobody's going to pay you for that. End of story. And yeah, it didn't do anymore. But yeah, there's some people, or for example, people who are super, super anal with details and stuff like that. You see that, it's just not, has to make sense from all directions. I mean, either you cut on the detail or you're super speedy painter, or, something has to give, but it has to be worth your time and the money that you get paid. I'll tell you a story I just talked about with a friend. So we're talking about details, right? And that obviously when we paint, it's not like hyper realism. It's not even close. This lady, years and years and years ago, she, like, one of my first largest like private residence jobs, it was like a mural by a pool, like a large wall, and they wanted like a stream kind of flowing with all kinds of animals and a forest and a tiny budget. But I was stressed by then, and I was desperate. So I was like, whatever you pay me, I'm grateful, let me just do it. She kept on adding things like her dog and her this and her that, whatever, fine. And then by the end of the project, which was substantial, it was definitely not worth my time, but again, I was desperate. When she comes to inspect, I tell her, hey, I'm done. So she comes, and again, it's by the pool. So you mainly see it from the other side of the pool. You have to have some distance, like you said, like 20 feet away, right? And she goes like super close, like 10 inches from the wall. It's like, this smidge over here. And I'm like, yeah, no, lady, I'm sorry. No, that's not how you look at a mural. That's not how you look. You can't go like that close and expect that everything will look smooth. I could spend here a month, but you'll have to pay me for that. And I don't think that that's in your cards. So she's like, oh, okay, I understand. But it was just, just sometimes it was a good lesson in knowing my lines, knowing my red lines, and knowing even when you're desperate, to say, okay, enough. You ask for this, that, I did a bunch of other things for her that weren't in the original basically deal. And when she came with that, I was like, okay, no, that's a no. And that's when I told her that. So I think over time, I learned to be more assertive. Not aggressive, but assertive, and telling people what I'll do and what I won't do, which again is something that a lot of us struggle with, including myself earlier on, right? Because when you struggle for work and you can't afford any kind of gig to escape or not to happen, you're basically desperate to do anything. I'm lucky that right from the beginning, I was able to, I would say, hold on to my vision in terms of design and look. I know that many artists don't do that because, you have a gig to paint, a big logo, or you have a gig to do it this style, you have this. And again, when you're desperate, you take everything and you try to do it and fine. Somehow with me, not that I didn't have those jobs, I did, and I still do, but I try to take them and learn from them and sort of add myself into them, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I did back in a day, epic ceiling that was incredibly detailed and incredibly difficult. And that was so not me. It was a pattern, basically, solid colors pattern, definitely not what I do. But it really taught me patience, B, that I can still do it and it still looks good. And also maybe integrate that within my work, some of that, not all of it, but some of that. That was a whole story by itself because I got screwed over very little pay. It was interior designer. I learned not to work with interior designers over that.
Why? Wait, what?
Yes. So that job came by from an interior designer, and my initial, when the interior designer, this fancy interior designer, came to me and they're like, well, we have this high-end project and we want you to do the ceiling that looks like a wallpaper, basically a wallpaper design that I had to redesign according to their definitions or their requests. And I gave them such a low price that was stupid. That was my first ceiling, I believe, or my first that kind of ceiling, I would say. And by the first hour of that job, I knew that I was in trouble in terms of that I gave them a way too low of a price, and that was going to take time and effort that I wasn't banking on. On my way home that first day, I cried the entire way home and I really didn't want to do the job because it was hard, very hard. I basically printed like a large print, like a 2x3 of the pattern, and basically traced it to the wall every day, like with pencil and chalk on the other side. So basically like carbon paper, and then painted it. Like very, very tedious work, very tedious work. And it had to be like certain colors. It was a nightmare. Anyways, by the end of the first day, I went home. I cried the entire way home. When I got home, I was like, okay, listen, I'm not the one to back away from a project. I'm going to see what happens the next morning. If I wake up and nothing hurts, I'm going to just take it one day at a time. And I woke up the next morning, nothing hurt. So I was like, okay, go back to work. So I went back to work, and it took me 10 days, and I completed that ceiling. I did ask for more. The interior designers was like, no. And so I was like, okay, that's enough. That was one job too many. And I appreciate, this lesson, but no more working with interior designers. And but the ceiling came out beautiful, gorgeous ceiling, huge lesson for sure.
What did you paint on it?
It was a floral pattern, basically.
Oh, wow.
Graphic floral pattern. Yeah.
On a ceiling. So flowers are tough in general. So you painted on a ceiling. How much did you charge for it? I'm curious.
I think it was 3,500 or something like that, like ridiculous. I mean, yeah. I really try to charge like $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly fast and I give good products. So I feel confident that, people will pay me for that. I try, because I'm an accidental artist and because some of me still resides in my past life, I still feel a little guilty for charging that much, but at the same time, very grateful, that I'm at this place that I can do that, and, provide for my family, help my son, help other people. So I try to do good by that and not just, count the money. But yeah, it's definitely learned over time. First, I think the first few years, it was maybe $250 a day.
Yeah.
Then it grew to like 500, and then you kind of get a little more courageous to ask a little more, and when people tell you yes, you're like, okay.
You're like, okay, great, thanks. Yeah. Did you, just to talk on raising your prices, because this is a question I get asked a lot. They're like, can I raise my prices right now? Do I have to wait till January 1st? How do you know when it's right to raise your prices? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a personal decision. I don't think it's not that we have to publish our prices, it's like we deal with clients. So many times also it depends on the client, some clients are, charity, or sometimes, it's entities that don't have a lot of money. So you can, give it, either do it for free or for a little or for whatever. And then there's people who have a shitload of money and you're like, okay, you can afford it. For example, I had a client 2 years ago. I always fall for that. I don't really do my research before. And that too, today with the social media and, the whole internet, you can actually look up, some people and their names and see where they stand. Not that I'm saying that you have to screw over people who are more wealthy. However, you can know where you stand, right? So this guy, he calls me and right away he's like, look, this is a high-end home. I called you because you do high-end work. I have no problem paying you. Just give me the best work. Boom. I'm like, okay, right. We did like 2 children's rooms and he wanted a lot of detail. Not big murals, but he was like, I want your best work here. And I'm like, okay, you got it. And it was about 4 to 5 days each room. And it was $4,000 per room. So that was a great project that actually funded my next 2 projects, which were unpaid. So there's the balance right there. I did like a mural at in Uvalde after the school shooting. That was a sort of charity or voluntary work, so it wasn't paid. So that funded that trip and that mural over there. And then I think I had another trip somewhere else to also work for very little or nothing.
Yeah.
It's cool. That's the way. I mean, it's funny because after I got the visa, if we go back, I had to basically start planning to get the green card and eventually the citizenship. So how it's done, you have to prove that you're good. And how you prove you're good, not by showing your work. I mean, that's not the way to go. The way to prove that you are good is by either winning prizes, and I don't like competition, so I don't do that, or having shows or having articles or basically being known, okay, in the field. So my way of doing that was through going to festivals, because I was like, hey, I'm going to show that I went to all these festivals. Obviously, the people in a committee don't know if you were, if there's anyone can go to the festival, it's just those who are good. So I made it like, I garnished it to make it look as if it's, only the best go there, whatever. But what it did, it really, first of all, it opened up my love for that form of art, which is not only to pay the bills and not only to please the client, but develop my own sort of thoughts about art or what I want to do when I grow up and so forth. Be able to express myself, a lot of times we can't if we only do commissions. And again, opened up, my circles of clients or potential clients or just networking, helped me really pace myself, because if you have a festival that has only 2 days, you can do it only in 2 days. You can't have a week. You can't be, oh, well, I don't feel like it now. So yeah, I mean, I just developed this love. So I am a full-time artist. And my hobby is also art or doing street art. So I'm a full-time mural artist with a hobby of street art. So a lot of times I do projects that are not paid for. Basically, street art is what I call free murals. I see that. I know a lot of people see it in a sort of negativity, basically like you shouldn't do like free art, you shouldn't do like free projects. To me, it's more sharing the gift that I have. And the reward of doing street art is that you do what you want, period. And to me, that's the ultimate freedom. So I cherish it, even in the price of not being paid. So if and when a project like that comes along, I mean, I have my own red lines. I have my own conditions. Like, for example, I'm not going to go to the other side of the world if I'm not getting paid, which I've done before. That's another story. But I'm not going to do that. Mostly the freebies will be next to, near home. So I don't run into a lot of expenses, mostly 1 or 2 days, not more, because I'm not going to waste that time. It has to come from me. It cannot come from someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone comes to me and say, hey, can you do this for free? I'm like, hey, no, sorry. I don't care. I mean, your cause might be the best cause in the world, but you cannot just assume that I'm going to do something free for you. No.
Yeah, for sure. I got you. So your hobby is also with paint. So sometimes I just need to do something different. Recently gardening is a thing, but just creating things. But I'm like, I don't want to touch a paintbrush. I don't want to touch. So do you do spray paints with the street art? No, you do brush. Okay.
Yeah. I tried that, and I have many, many friends that do spray paint. First of all, I don't like the limitation of the spray can, like that you have to use only that color. Or like to blend, you have to have 2 colors or more. And the brush is so easy. You just, you just mix that color with that color and boom, on the wall or on a plate or on, wherever. And you have endless hues and endless colors, I also use a lot of oops paints, a lot of mist tints, like at the Home Depot when they have them, they mix the wrong colors and they offer them at like very, very cheap. So all of our garage is lined up with oops paints and paints from past projects for the garden, for that strawberry plant, also for the hands. I didn't even buy 1 gallon of paint. It was all from the garage. So I try to, reuse, recycle, just use what I have. And spray paint has so much waste that I'm like, I just the thought of it is like, oh no. Also, I don't know, you have to really have a lot of like muscles in the finger. I don't know how that works, but I don't know, it doesn't work for me. No? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. And like shaking it all the time. And it's like,
Yeah, I've dabbled in it, but I'm like, or a brush, or we could just blend
yeah,
with a brush.
so much simple. Like, oh, do all these little details. I'm like, just pick up a brush. I mean, that's it. Mate.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So tell me some more stories. So I know you're
Oh,
full of
Lord.
them. So I'm like,
All right, let me tell you. I think the best stories that people like to hear is like stories where we get screwed up
yeah.
because it's like it's just funny and not funny at the same time, but it's a good lesson. So talking about festivals and stuff like that, I got this. And again, I'm a hardcore introvert. I don't go. I mean, we don't leave the house, at night. It's like me and the husband, the same thing. I mean, we just don't go. We have very, it's like we and the cats, and that's about it. And then we're happy that way. And then 2018 came this offer invitation to be a part of a project in a remote little town of 1 million people in India. And I'm like, ugh, I really never had any desire to go to India, unlike others that do, but I was, no. And I came to the, dinner table and I told my husband, sure, that he's going to say, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. It wasn't a lot of money and it was more about the adventure, and I'm not adventurous. But he was like, that sounds interesting. You should take it. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. I'm like, fuck. Okay. So I did. And it was just horrific. It was horrific in so many ways. First of all, just a shock to land in India in like a remote town.
Yeah.
It's not Delhi.
I feel you. Yeah.
Ugh. Okay, that was one. Then the wall was a retainer wall of I wouldn't say a highway, but closest. I had to work at night, filthy, hot, humid, at night with no lights. Good thing that I had from Costco, like headlight, you wear here. At the first night, it was a 28 feet tall wall by 70, I think. So it was a huge wall. The first night they brought me this early 70s bucket truck with like a single bucket truck with an operator in the bucket. So I had to go inside with a man that would take me wherever I had to go in the wall. And that's how I started a mural. And it was pretty interesting. And I was after the first night, I went to the organizer and I'm like, look, not really my thing, At first, they really wanted me to go on the bamboo, scaffolding stuff that they have there. And I'm like, look, I didn't come all the way here to risk my life. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen, I can stay here until my flight back. No worries. But you're not going to get me climbing on those things. I'm asking you to get me a normal lift, like a, modern lift. So after 2 more nights, the third night, they brought a lift, like a more modern lift. That was one of the lifts in the airport. So every night, the operator had to drive it to my job site and operate it at the job site with me. And somehow the wall got done, which is a miracle. By the end of the project, after we got home, they didn't even pay us the rest of the money. So that was both like a horrific, I mean, just conditions beyond like measure. And then they didn't pay us for the little that they had to pay us, they didn't. So I was like, okay, that's not going to happen again.
Yeah. You're like, that's a lesson learned. Check mark.
For sure. But the lesson that I learned actually was that in spite of all that, I was able to finish the mural the way I wanted it. I mean, I was able to fulfill my plan, which for me was huge because I was like, if in those conditions I was able to perform and still do what I wanted to do, then I can do it nearly everywhere. And to this day, what he does to me, like when I like in a bad mood or when I'm bitching or when, I have it hard, I go back in my mind to that particular project and I'm like, oh, but it's not that. You know what I'm saying? So you feel so much better all of a sudden. You're like, no, you're bitching for nothing. Just don't. You just work. You're a lot better here. So yeah. So that kind of it acts like a certain low that you can always only go up. And it really helps with perspective, because sometimes we're really in this place that we feel miserable, or we feel like stressful, or we feel like all kinds of feelings in that moment. But then if we, open up and look at, the bigger picture, then it looks different. So that project really forms that perspective that really gives me that point of measure, in a sense.
Yes, exactly. I definitely can attest to that as well. I had a similar experience. I went to Ghana, and like deep in Ghana, and I volunteered at an orphanage teaching art, and similar, the shock. It was really hot. I wasn't doing anything the majority of the time. I was like, why am I here? Like this. And I ended up leaving early because I was like, guys, this is fun, but not really. Like,
Yeah.
it's not.
How long did you stay there?
It's like a week. And I was supposed to be like 2 weeks or whatever, but it was like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to Morocco now or something. And like everybody in Morocco was like, whoa, this place is like so dirty. And I'm like, I just came from Ghana. Like this place is great. Like, and also I painted in an orphanage. Like, so it's like, I was scarred by that for a while, like a long time. And it was like the guilt of living in this society, and just like, my friends are texting about getting their shirts on Amazon and stuff like that. I'm like, these children over there have nothing. Like, don't bitch like they sent you the wrong size. Like, I cannot handle this. But it just, even like working away from home so much now, sometimes when I'm like, oh, I got to go do this thing and it's taking longer, it's like, oh, at least I'm not on the road away from my family and my friends. Like this, I get to sleep in my own bed at night. Like, okay, this job isn't so bad. So perspective, just to echo what you're saying,
it's so super important to have, because really sometimes we lose that perspective and everything seems so narrow and so about, a certain thing, when actually there's many other things or factors that go into. So, but yeah, I remember stepping out of the airport and knowing that I have to put everything that I know about my life in a back pocket and leave it there until I come back, because I couldn't compare, because there's no comparison. It's so different that you're either there or here. There's no correlation. There's no connection between the two. For many other, I come originally from the Middle East, so it's not, it wasn't that foreign. It was a lot worse from what I knew, but it was like, I have experienced some of it before. So for me, it wasn't like a total shock, but at the same time, yeah, this is nowhere where, I live and my way of living and the way nothing. Basically like the streets is like basically people, cars, trucks, buses, cows, dogs, motorcycles going all directions all the time. There's no law, there's no order, there's no, like, people throw things on the street there. Like, it's the garbage, the dust, it's just overwhelming, especially if you come with, again, a Western mindset and you're like, oh, well, really, we're used to things looking that way or this way, or things, being handled a certain way. And then you get somewhere so different, it can really, drive you nuts. So I just chose to kind of put it all in the back pocket and say, okay, let's just experience this as it is here and the best I can, and just move forward,
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Because if you're wanting it to be like home, or you're wanting anything other than the present moment, then it's going to be a longing that's not going to be served.
Right. So every trip that I have, every trip, like, doesn't matter where, including I was in Australia. It was a great, great trip. But the minute I land, I already want to go back. I'm like, I'm halfway back to the plane to go back home. I'm like, I'm good. The flight was good. Now let me go back home. I don't want to experience nothing more. I'm good. I just want to go back home to my cats and my husband and my house and my bed, and that's it, Yeah. But there is a lot to learn out there, even as an introvert, I'm definitely not adventurous. I'm definitely not seeking, I'm not discovering new countries or anything like that, but there is a lot to be learned. And again, for the perspective, even for art, we are inspired by different things. Like in Australia, for example, just to see the different scenery, you drive and basically you see kangaroos and emus by the side of the roads. Like we have deer here and I don't know, possums or armadillos, and they have emus and kangaroos. Like they're jumping at you. I'm like crossing the street, crossing the roads. It was so funny. It was so strange, and like you're in Jurassic Park or something like that. So it was fascinating. It was a great trip. I really enjoyed that, aside of being so far away from home. But,
Yeah, there definitely is something about just being so far away, especially I'm not a big traveler, a solo traveler anyway. I am a very adventurous introvert. And so those just don't go well sometimes. And like there's several times where I would be somewhere and even with a couple friends and I was like, okay, let's just take a breather, take a break. We'll just go back to my hostel or wherever we're staying at and just take a nap or something. And then let's try this again. Like it's just
big breath. And yes, for sure. Yeah. It happens to me every time. I'm like, yeah, why did I want to go here? I'm not sure.
It's romanticized. Like traveling is so romanticized. The photos online look so great. And it's like in what Instagram sees, right? But behind the scenes, it's like, there are a lot of fun spots but there's also just a lot of anxiety in traveling that doesn't get talked about.
I travel for work, and then sometimes I add a few more days or if I can enjoy the place. But my excuse is primarily for work. So work, paint, whatever. I mean, work. I call work, but it's not always compensated. So it's more about painting, So I can justify my, I would say, unusual, adventurous self in basically painting first. So I fulfilled this part. When I fulfill this, I'm more open to do something else, which was happening in Australia. But yeah, all of my travel has been work related, and I'm happy that it's that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, to wrap this up, do you have any little bit of last tips for artists who maybe are just starting out and they want to get to where you are one day? They want to have some crazy experiences and paint big things.
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people, I see some questions at that Facebook group. It's like, well, how can I get my first gig, or how can I get experience, something like that. My first murals were at home, the garage wall, my son's room. You can take, if you can't paint on a wall, you can take like a big plywood, panel and paint on that. You can paint for friends. You can paint for, I don't know, animal shelters. You can paint for, there's so many places that one could paint on and for just to get that experience, and also just to listen to oneself. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how people see this, the mural thing as a glorified thing. I mean, for me, it's a lot. It's hard work, it's hard physical work. Many times not in good conditions. I live in Houston. I can tell you that working outside from now until November, basically, it's hell. It's like working on the sun, basically. It's not fun at all. You sweat, you're miserable. It's humid. It's not fun. But anyways, if someone has it in them, if someone really, really wants to be a mural artist, it's not for everyone. It's just not. I would say be frank with yourself and try it a few times. If you see that you're not fast enough, if you see that you're too anal about details, if you see that you're not getting good feedback, if you see that you cannot pace yourself, maybe it's not for you. Don't just know the limitations, because I think that a lot of people are they have a goal, I have a target, and they don't realize that sometimes maybe it's just not for them. Maybe something else is for them, and that's fine. It's not, murals have chosen me. Mural work has chosen me. I never aimed there to begin with. It was one of the things that I did. It worked well for me. But at the same time, maybe in hindsight, I think it makes more sense to be a studio artist, or to develop this studio artistry on the side, just because at some point you're just too old and too cranky to go on a scaffold or on ladders. I'm 53 now. I don't know how long I'll be able to climb on scaffolds and work outside. I wish I could be in the AC, all day and work, in the studio and be able to pay the bills that way.
Yeah.
So don't be stubborn into saying, oh, just all I want to do is to be a mural artist. Just listen to yourself, give yourself some room, try new things, try other things, and see what works best for you and what you work best for.
So true. It is. It's a workout to get things done.
It's life, it develops. It's not like it's not like a one-way street,
So true. Yes. Thank you so much for chatting today, Anat. I am going to continue to follow along with you, and I suggest everybody else do the same. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. I hope you're enjoying this Muralist Month feature with all of the large-scale painting talk. I know I am. But if you are wanting to start dabbling in murals yourself, or you think that you could just use a little help with that, I want to again point out all of the freebies that I offer. I just did a video training on how I price my mural projects. So I put out a pricing guide in the past. I have since updated it, and I've attached a video training with examples, like visual examples of projects that I've done with price tags on them. So I share exactly what I painted, what I charged for it. I even share some of the murals that I did early on that I drastically undercharged for. I show you that, and I show you what I would have charged for now, and just how I price things now versus back then. And yeah, I basically open up my website and go through photos of like, oh, yep, charged $5,000 for that one, did this wrong on this one, and you get the whole inside scoop. I share this in the inside of the Artist Academy as I do them. So Artist Academy members, you already have this training and you already see things like this as they're happening. I literally finish a project and then I share it inside of the Academy and say it went really well, or we had this hiccup, or I charged this much and then I profited this much. I spent this much in help. I spent this much in supplies. I share it all in the Artist Academy as I go. So I was like, okay, they really enjoy that. I'm going to take a mini version of that, put it on our training mural pricing guide thing, and you get to get a little snippet of that too. So go to artistacademy.co/pricing, or really better yet, just click the link in this podcast and it'll take you right to the pricing training, and you get to be a snoop and see how I price my stuff. And if you want to get even snoopier, you can also go to artistacademy.co/supply, where you get, you guessed it, my mural supply list with links and everything to all of my mural supplies. So you get to see how I price, and you get to see what I use to paint. So 2 big things. Take advantage of it if you're curious at all. So the mural supply list, I also include a video. I take you inside of my art studio and show you exactly what products that I have between the paint and why I use this paint over this other paint. And I show you what it looks like. I show you all the different brushes. I show you my 3 different ladders that I own and why I have 3 ladders and which is best for which project. I go pretty thorough. I show you everything. I even show you how I tote things around so that I don't have to make 10 trips to the car. It's all there. So artistacademy.co/supply. Just go to the show notes up here and you can click the links. But I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I will catch you on the next one.